The sound of laughter used to warm me. Tonight, it grates like silverware scraping glass. My sister's dining room glows under a chandelier I once helped her pick, the same one I cleaned after her kids' birthday parties for years. The smell of roasted chicken, garlic bread, and spilled juice fills the air. Comforting, familiar, suffocating. "Emily, can you keep an eye on the twins while I plate dessert?" she calls, like it's muscle memory. I look up from my glass of wine. "Actually, I'm fine right here." My tone is calm, almost too calm. She pauses, spoon in hand, like I've spoken a foreign language. Around the table, my mother frowns. My brother-in-law clears his throat. The twins, 8 now, giggle at something on their tablets, blissfully unaware of the tension frosting the air. I smooth the silk of my cream blouse, soft, expensive, earned. My reflection in the dark window looks steady, but my pulse thrums under my wristwatch. Years of unpaid babysitting, canceled plans, and swallowed resentment press against my ribs. It's been months since I've sat at this table. They think I've been finding myself, whatever that means. In truth, I've been rebuilding myself, brick by brick, paycheck by paycheck. And tonight, I didn't come to help. I came to see if they'd notice who I've become. My phone buzzes beside my plate, a message from someone whose name would make this whole table blink in disbelief. I smile faintly. Tonight, for the first time, they'll finally see me. It started innocently enough. I was 24, freshly graduated, and broke. My sister, Megan, had just had her second baby, and she and her husband insisted I stay with them for a few months until I figured things out. It sounded generous. Family helping family. The first few weeks were sweet chaos. Diapers, midnight feedings, Megan crying from exhaustion, me stepping in because I couldn't bear to watch her crumble. I'd whisper, "Go sleep. I've got them," thinking I was helping. But helping slowly turned into expected. Before I knew it, months had passed. My job applications gathered dust while Megan's thank yous turned into "You're so good with them. Could you pick them up from daycare? Or you don't mind staying home tonight, do you?" At first, I said yes out of guilt. Then I said yes out of habit. Soon, I stopped saying anything at all. I remember the first time I tried to bring it up. "Meg, I think I need to focus on finding work." "I can't keep," she interrupted, rocking the baby against her shoulder. "Emily, you will. But right now, they need you. You know I couldn't do this without you." Her voice cracked just enough to make me feel selfish for wanting my own life. The days blurred. I started to measure time by feedings and tantrums instead of goals and dreams. My clothes smelled like baby lotion and exhaustion. I'd watch my friends' lives scroll by online promotions, vacations, engagements, while I folded tiny socks and told myself this was temporary. One evening, I found an old box in the closet. Inside, a small silver locket from our grandmother. I'd forgotten she gave it to me before she passed. Inside was a note in her delicate handwriting. "Don't let love make you smaller, sweetheart. Real love helps you grow." Something about those words lodged deep in my chest. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I stood in front of the mirror. Dark circles, tired eyes, hair tied in a careless bun, and whispered, "I can't live like this." It wasn't a scream. It wasn't even defiance. Just truth. Quiet but certain. The next morning, I told Megan I was moving out. She blinked, stunned, then scoffed like I'd said something ridiculous. "Where will you go? You have nothing lined up." Maybe she was right. But as I packed my single suitcase, I felt something stronger than fear for the first time in years. Freedom. Freedom, it turned out, wasn't glamorous. It was quiet, uncertain, and often smelled like instant coffee and cheap detergent. I rented a tiny studio apartment above a laundromat, peeling paint, squeaky floorboards, and a heater that coughed more than it warmed. But it was mine. For the first time, every mess was my mess. Every silence was my peace. I started applying for marketing jobs, but no one wanted to hire a girl with family experience instead of formal work. So I pivoted. I began offering freelance help to small businesses, designing flyers, managing social media pages, writing catchy captions for bakeries and thrift stores. It paid almost nothing at first, but every dollar felt like a small rebellion. One night at a coffee shop, while working on a client post, a woman in her 50s sat beside me. Her name was Diane Porter, owner of a mid-sized event planning company. She watched me juggle Canva tabs and spreadsheets on my old laptop and said, half-jokingly, "You work like someone who's got something to prove." She wasn't wrong. Diane became my mentor before I even realized it. She taught me how to price my work, pitch confidently, and never apologize for ambition. "People will call you bossy," she said once. "Let them. That's what women with boundaries sound like." Under her guidance, I began landing bigger clients, corporate events, local campaigns, weddings. I registered my business, Elm Creative Company. The first time I saw that name on a contract, I cried in my car. But I didn't tell my family. When Megan called, it was always the same. "You sound busy." "Doing what, exactly?" I'd just laugh. "Oh, some freelance stuff." It was easier to stay small in their eyes than to explain how hard I was fighting to grow. I'd scroll through their social media, birthday parties, holidays, me tagged in old photos with captions like, "Best aunt ever." The irony stung. They loved the version of me that was always available, never the woman who was finally unavailable. 2 years passed. My apartment got bigger. My laptop got newer. My savings grew. I hired my first assistant, then a small team. Diane called me her quiet powerhouse, and for once, I believed her. There were nights I still felt guilty, like I'd abandoned them. But guilt fades when you start sleeping peacefully. Then, last month, I received an invitation to a family dinner. Megan's message read, "It's been too long, Em. We miss you. Come home." Home. The word caught in my throat. I stared at the invitation for a long time, unsure if it was nostalgia or nerves fluttering in my stomach. But then I thought about Grandma's locket, still hanging by my mirror, and the note tucked inside. "Real love helps you grow." Maybe it was time to see if they'd grown too. I texted back, "I'll be there." And as I slipped my phone into my bag, I smiled. Because this time, I wouldn't be showing up empty-handed or small. I arrived 10 minutes early. Old habits die hard. Megan's neighborhood hadn't changed. Same manicured lawns, same kids' bikes scattered across driveways. As I pulled into her street, I felt a strange mixture of nostalgia and detachment. 2 years ago, this drive would have meant babysitting duty. Tonight, it felt like walking into the final act of a play I'd long stopped performing in. When I stepped inside, the noise hit me first. Children laughing, dishes clattering, music humming from a Bluetooth speaker. Megan looked up from the kitchen island, eyes wide. "Emily," she said, wiping her hands on a towel before hugging me. You look amazing." Her surprise wasn't unkind, but it was laced with disbelief. I smiled politely. "Thanks, Meg. You look good too." She didn't notice the subtle details, the tailored black jumpsuit, the diamond studs, the quiet confidence that came from signing payroll checks every Friday. Dinner unfolded like a performance I'd seen 100 times. Mom fussing about the food, Megan bragging about her husband's promotion, the twins interrupting with crumbs and laughter. I listened, smiled, sipped wine, and waited. Eventually it came. It always did. "So," Megan asked, spearing a piece of chicken, "what have you been up to, Em? Still freelancing? Or?" Her tone was casual, but I caught the tiny flicker in her eyes, curiosity mixed with mild pity. I placed my fork down carefully. "Actually, no. Not freelancing anymore." "Oh." Mom chimed in, eyebrows raised. "Did you finally get something steady? Maybe part-time?" I laughed softly. "Something like that." I let the silence hang just long enough for everyone to look at me. Then I said, "I own a company now. Elm Creative Company. We handle corporate event marketing and design. About 30 employees, plus contractors." Megan's fork froze midair. "You own a company?" I nodded. "For almost a year now." Mom blinked, visibly struggling to process it. "Why didn't you tell us?" I met her gaze evenly. Because whenever I tried to talk about my work, it was dismissed. I got tired of explaining my dreams to people who thought I was just the babysitter. The table went quiet except for the faint clink of glasses. Megan cleared her throat. Well, that's impressive, Really? But you could have asked for help. We would have supported you. I tilted my head slightly. Would you have? The last time I asked for time to myself, you handed me a diaper bag. Her mouth opened, then closed. The twins stared, sensing the shift. I took a slow sip of wine. I'm not angry, I said finally. Not anymore. But I needed you all to see that while you were living your lives, I was building mine. Quietly. Without your approval. Megan looked down at her plate. We didn't mean to take advantage of you, she murmured. I know, I said gently. But intent doesn't erase impact. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Mom reached across the table, eyes glistening. I'm proud of you, honey. Truly. Something inside me softened. For years, I'd imagined this moment me strong, them humbled. But standing here, hearing my mother's voice tremble with something that sounded like honesty, I realized I didn't need their shock or shame. I just needed my peace. Megan broke the silence with a small, shaky laugh. So, the company's doing well? I smiled. Well enough to turn down 2 investors last month. Their jaws dropped almost in unison. For the first time in years, I wasn't the helper, the extra, the background noise. I was the headline. After dinner, we moved into the living room. The air felt heavier now, less chatter, more unspoken questions. The kids ran upstairs, and for the first time in a long while, it was just the adults. Megan poured herself a glass of wine she didn't need. Listen, she started, avoiding my eyes. I know things weren't fair back then. We leaned on you too much. But we were young, overwhelmed. I held up a hand gently. Megan, it's okay. You don't have to justify it. I get it. She looked startled by my calm. Maybe she expected anger or tears. But those belonged to the old Emily, the one who said yes to everything. What I care about now, I continued, is what happens next. They both stared at me, unsure where I was going. I leaned forward, voice steady but warm. You said earlier you want me around more. I'd like that too. But there have to be boundaries. Megan blinked. Boundaries? Yes. I met her eyes. If I visit, I'm a guest, not the help. I'm their aunt, not their babysitter. I love your kids, but I won't raise them again. She looked down, guilt flashing across her face. Of course, she whispered. I turned to Mom, who sat quietly twisting her bracelet. And you, I said softly. No more saying things like family comes first when what you really mean is Emily comes last. Her lips parted, but no words came out. I'll help when I choose to, I added. Not because I owe it, but because I want to. That's what love should look like now, choice, not obligation. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Mom nodded slowly. You're right, she said, voice trembling. You've given enough. Something in the room shifted, like a knot that had been tied for years finally loosening. Megan took a shaky breath. I don't know how to thank you for what you did back then, she said. But I want to make it right. Tell me what I can do. I thought for a moment, then smiled faintly. Start by chasing something that's just yours. Remember when you wanted to finish your nursing degree? Do that. Stop hiding behind being a mom. Show your kids what ambition looks like. Her eyes filled with tears. You really think I still can? I reached out and squeezed her hand. You can. You just forgot. The silence that followed wasn't awkward, it was cleansing. For the first time in forever, I wasn't shrinking to fit inside this family. I was expanding, and they were learning to meet me where I stood. Before leaving, Megan hugged me tightly. We'll do better, she whispered. I know, I said, smiling into her shoulder. We all will. As I walked out to my car, the night air felt cool and honest against my skin. The kind of air that only comes after a storm. A few weeks passed before I saw them again. This time, Megan came to my office. She looked around, taking in the glass walls, the framed campaign photos, the soft hum of productivity. My assistant offered her coffee, and Megan smiled shyly, like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to accept. You really built all this, she said, eyes wide. Yeah, I replied, leaning back in my chair. Brick by brick. She set her purse down and looked at me with something new in her expression. Respect. I signed up for classes again, she said quietly. Nursing. It's online for now, but I'm doing it. I couldn't help smiling. That's amazing, Meg. She nodded, eyes shining. You were right. I kept telling myself it was too late, but it's not. I just needed someone to remind me. That night when I got home, I took off my heels and sat by the window with a cup of tea. The city glowed beneath me, soft, golden, alive. I reached for the silver locket hanging on my mirror and opened it again. Grandma's handwriting still looked as fragile as the day I first read it. Don't let love make you smaller, sweetheart. Real love helps you grow. For so long, I'd thought those words were about romantic love. But they weren't. They were about every kind of love, family, friendship, self. The next Sunday, Megan invited me over again. When I arrived, she was playing with the twins in the yard. She waved and shouted, "Emily's here." And for the first time, no one handed me a diaper bag. Instead, the twins ran up and hugged me. "Mom says you're super rich now," one of them whispered. I laughed. "Tell your mom that's not polite to say." Megan rolled her eyes from the porch, smiling. They're just proud of their aunt. Something in my chest eased. Maybe this was what healing looked like. Not revenge or distance, but balance. Later that night, driving home, I thought about all those years I'd spent in the background of other people's lives. Now I was finally living my own. I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. The same eyes, but different fire. For years I was treated like free childcare. But that night, and every night since, I've learned something priceless. When you stop letting people define your worth, you stop being what they need, and start becoming who you're meant to be. And that is freedom.